Hello? Yes?
Unfortunately, by the time I got to 21, I got stabbed again. It starts as I was born in prison, and obviously it was my earliest memory, being in and out, going to visit my mum. And physically, I'm left with scars. In the beginning, I didn't think I'd probably have kids, because it's a major scar on my belly. People judge you anyway. With a scar on your face, people judge you as a bad breed.
Good evening. Tonight we are looking for solutions to one of London's most serious issues, how to cut knife crime. You were stabbed 7 times in 2011. Do you think the situation's out of control?
I don't think it's out of control, it's definitely getting worse.
2 guys came from off of the estate, and my neighbours a couple of doors down. They got off outside their door. I'm still shaking up remembering it. They actually got off 2 guys, one with a shotgun and one with a pistol, and basically stood outside their front door and fired. And I'm a couple of doors down, and it freaked the shit out of me. They are used at the end of the day going to school with weapons to protect themselves or whatever at the end of the day. I've been told my kids grew up in this sort of environment. As much as I try to keep them out of it, but this for them, and the age group's younger and younger, and it's frightening. You don't want, at the end of the day, the personal experiences, all the people that are getting stabbed and everything else. When it's personal, because then it's like it comes closer to home.
Who's Lydia Lawrence?
So Lydia Lawrence is a person that's gone through a lot, gone through a lot of struggles, grew up with a lot of trauma. It starts as I was born in prison, and obviously it was my earliest memory, being in and out, going to visit my mum in prison. Ended up being in a situation where my mum was in and out, and it was affecting me quite a lot from a very early age. Like from primary school, I was affected quite dramatically about it. And I used to play out in primary school, so I'd be very, very naughty and pick up tables and chairs and throw it, and just being really, really angry, but obviously not identifying that I was going through traumas.
You recall that?
Yeah, I recall that. I was doing that a lot. Done that all the way through my primary schools, but at primary school I had a really good support system, so I had teachers that knew what was going on in my life, and they were just supportive. So when my mum or my granddad or my mum wouldn't pick me up from school on occasions, the teacher would take me to her house and look after me until my mum would come up and get me. It was a thing where they wouldn't call social services, and it's slightly different back then, but yeah. Went into secondary school, I continued with my behaviours. By the time I got to 12, I got sliced. I got sliced in my face by a girl that's slightly older than me, so she was 15.
I grew up with just my mum, so she was like my role model. She was there for me the hard times, surrounded from young, innit? So it was just normal. I would just see it every day as if it was a normal lifestyle.
The events that led up to my first stabbing was, it was just literally, there used to be an event that happened. It was a kids event that used to happen in a park called Play Day in Ravenscourt Park, and some of the girls that I used to hang around with, so these girls lived in my block, and they was slightly older, so they would have been around 17 and I was 12, or 15 and I was 12, and because I like singing, I used to sing with them, but they used to be up to different stuff, and I never used to go out with them and do any of that like dodgy stuff what they used to do. But one day they said something, they made this rumour that I had said something about one of the girls, and I was like, no, I didn't say that. But actually I heard them actually say it, and I was like, I didn't say it, but I've heard you say that, so don't say I said it. And when I brought that up, they decided to beat me up. So they beat me up at the Play Day event, and then I got my big cousin to come to back me, to back me up. So she went and I had a fight with these girls on my behalf, and then it got to a point where every time the girls would come for me, my cousin would be the person to back me up and like fight my defense. And it got to a point where they knew that they couldn't come to me without my cousin being there. So on an occasion, they decided to the girl brought her older brother, and I brought my cousin again, because they said they wanted to have a fight. And but it was like a distraction, so the brother called my cousin over to speak to her, whilst the girl had a broken glass bottle in her hand, and she was obviously intending to fight me with that broken glass bottle. So that was it. Me and her had a little bit of a fight. I got up and everybody told me that your face has been cut and you're bleeding. It was an experience, but for me, the trauma, I didn't really notice it. I didn't really identify. I was just going. It just added on to the other traumas that I was going through. So it was just kind of like, yeah, normal. Did that thing. I just kind of had it happen to me. I didn't grasp, didn't snitch back in those days. We didn't call the police. It was just something that happened, which was quite unfortunate. And then I went to a centre because obviously I was bad. I went to a secondary school. They didn't tolerate my behaviour. So after that, I was sent to a pupil referral unit, where obviously I was still quite naughty at the pupil referral unit for many years. But then I had a boot camp, a boot camp that they had introduced to our centre, which they had took to high security prisons in America, to break up gang violence in Chicago. And yeah, they brought it as a pilot scheme to London. And they brought it to the centre, and 136 people from the centre went to the boot camp, and only 13 people completed the boot camp. So it was very, very hard hitting, very intense. For me, it was very, very difficult because you had to write a letter to your mum, you had to write a letter to your dad, and you had to write your life story, and you had to stand up and read it in front of every single person that you know from your area. And it was very, very hard, hence the reason why the amount of people were going, like getting sent home. So yeah, that changed my life, the boot camp, to be fair. It made me look at my life and realise that, the things that had happened to me in my past weren't my fault. And I guess at a young age, not really knowing, I probably was thinking it was my fault, and I was just angry because of what was happening. But realistically, it wasn't my fault, and I had that breakthrough at that boot camp, which changed my life and really just made me look at life differently.
I've chosen this lifestyle for the money. I've chosen to do it as it was hard for us to get a good opportunity in life to be someone good, to be someone successful. It came to us easy. We started this game, and it was like a game to us. We started it. You had loads of money coming in, nice cars, nice clothes, nice skills. You could do whatever you want. You don't ever need to worry. Even though we're out there 24/7, that was our way to make a living. And the living, obviously, there's ups and downs to the living. You could get shot any second, you get stabbed at any second. Because these roads, it's not a safe road, it's cold.
I still carry a knife.
You still carry a knife?
Yeah.
Why is that though? What are you protecting yourself from?
I've got a lot of haters and stuff, people that want to kill me. And it's for my protection, to be honest. Yeah. The road side's mad right now. The road side's mad.
It's not that, yeah. If you got a knife on the street, yeah, and you get into a beef with someone, yeah, you ain't gonna have a fist fight nowadays. It's 2018.
No fist fight.
It's 2018, bro. Yeah? They're gonna pull out a weapon, so are you. Yeah? You know what I'm saying? It's an eye for an eye.
So initially, from very early childhood stages, I used to sing, and I really, really enjoyed singing, and I felt like that was my God-given talent. But I guess things and impacts of what had happened to me in my life, by the time I got to a teenager, I just lost my confidence of singing, and I guess I just didn't want to be a singer anymore. Maybe I just didn't want to be in the spotlight. I didn't want that life. What happened with my mum, and the reason to why I believe my mum spiraled into a situation where she was in prison and resulting in me being born in prison, is because obviously my mum had her first kid at 16 years old, second kid at 18. And it couldn't have been easy for her, at 16 years old, of having newborn children, at 16 and 18 still being near enough a child herself, who was in and out of care as well, because she was in care as well. All of her brothers and sisters were from the Caribbean, born and bred in the Caribbean, and she was the one that was born here. So what I think happened is that she kind of, with how the system works in the UK, she kind of manipulated it. And obviously, Childline became available, so she was threatening her mum that, she will call Childline, and she was just being a rebel because she knew that the parents can't beat the kids like how they could beat them in the Caribbean, so she can get away with certain things here. So she was very, very naughty, and it got to a point where, I suppose my grandmother couldn't take it anymore, and she wanted to go into a home, so that's the route that she took. And that was the easy option for her, to go into a care home and be around her friends and not have to deal with the discipline at home. So I believe that's kind of what her journey was. So those things would have had an impact. So my mum, she was known as a bit of like the baddest woman in West London. Like, she will beat up all the men, she'll beat up police officers, she'll beat up anybody. So she was known for that. So yeah, that's kind of what played me up to get to where I was. And I just, as I said, I used to kind of play out like her. Like, I used to think like that was respectful, and that's how you get respect or gain respect, which I found out quite, lately after, that you can't get respect from going around hurting people. So yeah, but she went through those things that led her to end up being, under alcoholics. She ended up being an alcoholic, a drug addict. She still is, still affected by those things. But yeah, she ended up being in and out of prison because she would just, shoplifting to feed the habit and stuff like that. So yeah, she had a time when she was going in quite frequently, but then she came out and we got a flat together and she kind of sorted herself out. And then we lost the flat because she weren't paying her rent. And then that's what ended up making me get my flat, being homeless at 15 and having to get a flat at 16, a hostel at 16, and got my first flat at 17 years old.
Watching Sky News at 5 o'clock, the headlines this evening. The mother of a teenage boy shot dead in London makes an emotional appeal for an end to violence in the capital.
I want these children to stop this. Stop.
The victim was an up-and-coming rapper. Police are investigating whether he was caught in a gangland feud.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to grey as you fade away.
When I came out of centre, I'd done everything I could to just work really hard. So I got a job. I was working as a recruitment consultant 9 till 5, and then I would work in a bar from 6 till 1, just to kind of be off the roads and not be vulnerable. Not be putting myself in vulnerable situations, or not be at risk of vulnerable situations. By the time I got to 21, although I tried my best, to not be in certain environments or not in vulnerable situations, I still ended up getting stabbed again at 21 on my lunch break at work, which for me was when the real trauma really came through. Like, I had severe post-traumatic stress, and I really knew what that felt like at that time. And that's because I'd done the work at boot camp to kind of overcome all those things, and I managed to deal with those things, and then I get hit with this traumatic experience. There was a young girl, she was slightly younger than me at the time, so she would have been 18, and she was under the impression that I was sleeping with her boyfriend, who was one of my friends. And he was giving her that impression, so he was kind of making her jealous, and he maybe had other girls that he was doing things with, but it wasn't with me. But she was under the impression that I was. So she had pre-threatened me that she was going to stab me up. I had stopped speaking to the boy because he was just obviously not doing anything about the situation. It seemed like he was adding more fuel to the fire. So I said, look, I'm not going to speak to you anymore until you sort out, this girl, and make sure that she knows what the situation is. And he just wouldn't do that. So I just I stopped speaking to him, and then For like 3 weeks straight, I'd see him every day on my lunch break at work, and he'd be like, oh Lydia, I just want to speak to you, I just want to be your friend again. And I'd be like, no. And then one day, I don't know what possessed me, but I said to him, follow me to the kebab shop. You know, you can walk with me, we can walk and talk. And I got to the kebab shop, and she calls his mobile phone, and he decides to say to her, me and Lydia can't be bothered to deal with your shit. So, you know, straight away, immediately, she puts a knife in her bag. She knew that he had just left her house, so she had assumed that I had just left the house with him. And so yeah, she came walking out to find out where he was. I saw her, like, she immediately hung up the phone on him, started calling my phone. I gave my phone to him and was like, speak to her, let her know it's me, but she just wasn't getting it. She came out of her house with the knife with the intention to come and stab me, and yeah, I walked towards her, she walked towards me. I saw her taking the knife out of her bag. I saw it all unfold in front of me, but I, you know, didn't think she was going to be doing that. So I got stabbed through my liver and my kidney. I got a big massive scar that goes all the way around here. Took the knife out and ran away with it. And then she handed herself in, and she ended up getting 12.5 years in prison. So 9 years for stabbing me, and 3.5 years for carrying the knife. So 12.5 years consecutively. But she ruined her life at such a young age, and it was really disappointing. But that's the problem with youth and getting intervention and getting the support that you need and require. I could have been one of those girls. Like, I could have been a girl that could have, quite easily stabbed somebody if I didn't get the intervention that I got at the crucial time. Sorry, just gonna come cuddle. I already called you 2 times. I'm thinking she ain't even noticed it's me. Hello, my lovely. I'm alright, you okay? They're there, they've been running around you all the time.
Oh my God, you're looking lovely.
Thank you, you too.
Good?
Yeah, I'm alright.
How's mummy?
Alright.
You're looking well.
Thank you, you too, mate, you too. 2, that's the youngest, isn't it?
The youngest. Grandmother.
You're not having any more, are you? Please don't.
8 is enough.
I know, baby.
8 is enough.
First and foremost, I can't imagine the pain that the families of loved ones, 2 who have died last night, are feeling right now. My name is Alex Murray. I'm a commander in the Met Police responsible for getting violence down in London. It must be incredibly raw, and I know the thoughts of all the people I work with in the Met are with the mums, dads and families and brothers and sisters of the young people who died last night.
Go ahead about it not being just a black boy issue.
Yeah, it's not, and I think people kind of lose sight of that because obviously I'm testimony that girls are quite heavily involved too, and it's based on the traumas in the environment, in the environment that's affecting both boys and girls, and of all races.
The Masan champion has been stabbed in 2013 in front of the school in Forest Gate. And they stabbed my son 11 times. And the boy who stabbed my son, they give him manslaughter for only 14 years, which is gonna do half years in prison. So today, I'm just standing up because the way I see, I'm not only talking as a champion's mom, I'm talking about all the mother because I know the pain losing a child. And the way knife crime is still going in this country, I can see myself is too much. I launched the charity for my son champion, All Champion Charity in 2019. But since that, I still meeting most of the parents when they lost their child in knife crime. And some of them, they're not even lucky to stand up today to talk because they cannot talk. They're disabled now. They are sick. They go hospital all the time. And I cannot standing, and I want to stand today to beg all the parents. Knife crime is not only for any people, it's for all of us. It's not only for black or white, it's everyone's problem. So we all need to stand up.
We had hoped to be joined tonight by the Minister for London, Nick Hurd, but he pulled out just yesterday. And also by London's Mayor Sadiq Khan, but he would only take part if the government did. Do you here get that sense that this is the Mayor's #1 priority? No. Okay, Mark, can we come to you, Paul? We know that police coverage in London is at its lowest level for 20 years.
from what I've been hearing, it always seems to come down to money, like our children's lives don't mean anything. We can't do this because we don't have a budget. We don't have that because we don't have money available. You know, you can't put a price on the cost of somebody's life.
The numbers that keep coming up, it feels like there is a civil war running in the streets.
Who's Lydia Lawrence?
So Lydia Lawrence is, I would say, you know, to boil me down to one word, I'd be like resilience. Very, very, very resilient. But yeah, Lydia Lawrence as a person is a person that's gone through a lot, a lot of struggles, grew up with a lot of trauma, but has taken that trauma to now, you know, empower others. My favourite food is African food, and specifically it's only like one dish because I haven't managed to taste many of the other different dishes. Jollof rice, okra stew, ground rice and okra stew with a lamb stew accompanied on the side. That's my favourite dish. I don't know many places to get it, so I make it myself, or I have a best friend that's really good at making it, so she does it for me. And if I was to get it from anywhere, it would have to be like Peckham or something like the authentic African, the most authentic African that I can find. Legacy, yeah, physical.
Physical, spiritual, emotional.
I won't go into the spiritual and religious, but I definitely went through a journey. I took my Shahada at some point when I gave birth to my son, actually. But I'm not really religious at all. Spiritual, I am spiritual. Physically, I'm left with scars, but and I would have thought it would have affected me. Like in the beginning, I didn't think I'd probably have kids, you know, because it's a major scar on my belly, and I wasn't sure how big your belly can grow with a scar like that. But as you can see, I don't really mind. I wear my crop tops. I don't mind if people judge me, because people are going to judge you anyway. So, I mean, I think I probably battled with it early stages of like, you know, people judge you anyway. With a scar on your face, people judge you as a bad breed or a bad person, or, you know, I must be in a gang, or I must be into something naughty. My favourite music is house music, specifically sort of South African Afro house music. I love it because it just kind of takes you into just all the drums. It just takes you into, it feels like you can transform into, or I can't get the word out. Yeah, it takes you to Africa. I feel like it's an experience. And my favourite DJ is a gentleman called Black Coffee, and he's a one-handed DJ.
Go ahead, action.
So I feel like what is the common denominator, and what connects me and still has me relatable to young people and their experiences, is because I've been through every adverse childhood experience that there is. You know, if it's a broken, you know, you're broken home from being coming from a single parent family, or drugs in the house, or alcohol in the house, abuse in the house, domestic violence. You know, when I speak about being born in prison, that ultimately relates with a lot of young boys because they've lost their father to the prison system. So it's those sort of connections that the moment I do share my traumas and all the things that I've been through, people want to stop and they want to listen and they want to react with me and they want to understand, like, how did you get through it? How did you get through it, Lydia? Because they in themselves are still struggling to even start unpacking it. Stop trying to airwig.
Mate.
Yeah, with the amount of publicity Mum's had, they've had to be forced to hear the stories now. I was trying to keep it from them as much as I could. Well, yeah.
The age of the internet. Welcome.
Welcome.
So we are now talking about the legacy of these happenings.
Let me know when you're ready.
Red light.
So fast forward to now, or should I say what's happened in my journey since all of these things have happened to me, is that it got to a point where obviously I got through my post-traumatic stress. I sought, you know, counselling, I done all the things, and I really found a lot of power in speaking about my story and sharing what had happened to me, because the more I shared what had happened to me, the more I felt like I was healing, and the more I feel like I'm healing. So it got to a point where knife crime started to become very, very prominent in the UK and in London, and I was hearing young people getting stabbed every other day, and I just woke up one morning and said no. I was watching BBC Parliament, and I don't actually even watch BBC Parliament, but they was talking about, you know, what money should be put towards what different things, and they actually mentioned that, you know, the FA, that, you know, big organisations like music industries and stuff like that should be doing more to provide opportunities. And with that being said, I jumped up and decided I'm going to do something to help with this knife crime situation. So I found the internet. I was looking on the internet, and somehow or another I managed to come across an event that was taking place at Parliament, and I booked a ticket and I went. And when I got there, the gentleman from Universal Studios was there, and it was just so ironic because that's who I wanted to speak to. I wanted to speak to Universal Studios, and I wanted to speak to the FA. And I spoke to him and I said, look, I'd really be interested in having a meeting with you to discuss opportunities to be provided for young people. And he was like, I'd be really up for that. So I had a meeting, and it just went from there. So I've just done everything. You know, I've done my best to do as much intervention. I feel like it's really important to do as much intervention within schools and at an early age as well, because, you know, kids as young as 5 could do with the intervention. I went back to the boot camp that changed my life when I was 15, and I now work as a transformational life coach with them, doing work within schools, but also doing sort of corporate work with teachers as well, and also corporate environments. But I also have started my own business, which is around workshops that I deliver within schools around knife crime, trauma-informed practice, and also just sharing my story, and also getting people to be empowered by their own words and their own stories. So it's called the Narrative Empowerment Project, and that's something that I do and take around to as many schools as possible. I work hard for change, and especially change within the community, change in the narrative. And although I've said I've gone through a lot of traumas, and now I've come out on the sort of better end, and I am now a transformational life coach, I am a business owner, I am a home educator, I am, I'm involved in many different charity work. So yeah, I do a lot now as I can to just try and make an impact to the community. So the future for me, you know, ultimately is I want to be as successful as ever. So I've got my fingers in many pies, but I just want to be an inspiration to my children. And I've mentioned that I had written my life story when I was 15, and I've now started to write my biography now. So I'm looking to write a free episodes or free sequel biography. So how I looked at my life when I was 15 and when I wrote that life story then, to how I look at my life now and what I've been through to date, and then maybe in the future I'd write another book 10 years on, you know, to see if I lived out and, you know, how my life panned out at that time. So definitely want to write my book, definitely want to go on to I've obviously started a business. I'm just hoping that will grow to be very successful, so I can move out of this UK back to potentially the Caribbean, or back to a place of just better quality of life, and have the freedom to just, you know, bring my children up in a better environment. Not really. Arsenal, if anything.
You say you support Arsenal, if anything?
If anything, yeah. As a person that's gone through a lot, gone through a lot of struggles, grew up with a lot of trauma, but has taken that trauma to now, you know, empower others. Huh? Yeah. About me life. You know about that, innit?
Oh, listen, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about.
Hello? Yes?
You can't hear me now?
Yeah. Okay, so you might be wondering, you know, where my dad was with all of this going on. I didn't really, growing up, I didn't really know my dad. Obviously, with the disruption with what was going on with my mum, my dad wasn't really around, and I was always just told that, you know, dad doesn't really care for you that much, and that was it. So after a while, as I got a little bit older, and as me and my mum moved out together, and we moved into the flat together, somehow I believe my dad came knocking, so he knew the address and he came knocking at the door, and I was just told, "Oh, your dad's outside," and I went outside and I met him, and that was around 11 and 12. So we started to build up a bit of a relationship around that time. I would go and visit him quite often. He lived in Fulham, so he still lived in the local area to me. And so by the time I got to 15, and then I was kicked out. Well, you know, obviously I left the hostel that me and my mum was living in because my mum ended up having an accident, and we ended up losing that. That's the reason why I ended up being sort of homeless. And I was surfing, so I was at my friend's house, and I went to my dad's house, and I tried to stay there for a little while, but because I was at centre and I was waking up in the morning, obviously responsible to go to school in the morning, one morning I woke up and he had he tried to like drag me out of the bathroom for me to go to school, and for me, I was like, you know, you have no right at all to put your hands on me, considering you have not really been in my life that often. So we ended up having a bit of an argument, and then I ended up leaving him, and that was where I carried on again, like sofa surfing again, until I was at an age where I actually approached the council to try and get my own flat. So I done that, got my own flat. I ended up rebuilding a relationship with him again, and we had a strong relationship up until a few years ago, until he passed. So yeah, my dad's now unfortunately no longer with us. But,
condolences.
No worries. But yeah, so that was the situation with him. So majority of my life he wasn't really in it, but at the end of his life we did end up building a little bit of a relationship. So I'm grateful for that.
I'm speaking.